All this is Dr. Mobeen Sayed, and we are in the Cool Beans Cafe Live. So I see Paul Bork here as well. Paul, thank you very much for your discussions. John says, Paul Bork, your Six Sigma skills are about to meet 8 to 7 Sigma. Thank you again. Yes, yes. So I wanted to share Dr. Tommy Zaharakis. He's going to join us on 5th August. As I've discussed before, he is a practicing doctor here in California. He had managed, when I got in trouble with COVID as well, with Dr. Keith Berkowitz too. So he sent this link, and I thought it is really interesting. Now, this is not something that is written now. This is, if you see here, 2017, November 17. So before the pandemic, before the ideas of is monkeypox anything to do with the pandemic, here is a study that says suppression of pox virus replication by resveratrol. Remember, resveratrol is also going to be able to help with the autophagy. And then I don't drink, but it is, I think, present in wine as well, red wine. And I had this over here. This is resveratrol. And if you go to Wikipedia or some other place that you like, you can read more about it. And here the study says pox viruses continue to cause serious disease even after eradication of the historically deadly infectious human disease smallpox. Pox viruses are currently being developed as vaccine vectors and cancer therapeutics agents. Maybe that's how they got released. I do not know. Resveratrol is a natural polyphenol stilbenoid found in plants that has been shown to inhibit or enhance replication of a number of viruses, but that effect of resveratrol on pox virus replication is unknown. In the present study, we found that resveratrol dramatically suppressed the replication of vaccine virus, the prototypic virus for pox viruses, in various cell types. Resveratrol also significantly reduced the replication of monkeypox virus, a zoonotic virus that is endemic in Western and Central Africa and causes human mortality. The inhibitory effect of resveratrol on pox viruses is independent of VACN1 protein, a potential resveratrol binding target. Further experiments demonstrated that resveratrol had little effect on VACV early gene expression, while it suppresses VACV DNA synthesis and subsequently post-replication gene expression. So this is the resveratrol. I was reading it for you, courtesy of Dr. Tommy Zaharakis. And here are various things in which resveratrol can be found. So look at these. Okay, excellent. So that is the today's value add. So I hope it's a Friday evening. You are relaxing, having fun. You got some coffee or something with you or tea, and we are having a chit chat. Broken says T-chart. Texas says T-chart. Yes. So what are we talking? Brett says watching Dr. Bean while drinking a Dr. Brown's. Very nice. Bean and Brown's. And I have no idea what Dr. Brown's is. I'll have to Google to find out. So Me Be Gone says, is monkeypox an STD with questionable beginnings? So this monkeypox had never been an STD, although now, unfortunately, it has spread in the community, in gay and bisexual or men who have sex with men community. But that does not actually make this an STD, meaning it can infect people who are not gay. It can infect men, women, children of other sexual orientations as well, or straights. So it's not a disease like STDs that are only, let's say, sexually transmitted. But at this time, it is transmitting through that route. So, because of that, you can count it as an STD disease. But it is, meaning you can't say that if I'm not gay, I cannot get it. One can get it. The Catcher says, we got 2 cups of blueberries from our small bushes this summer. Maybe more next year. I'll need a lot more bushes to get enough. Maybe from the supermarket or someplace, store. So, meanwhile, in America says, a while ago you said something about monoclonals having some adverse side effects. What were they? So, monoclonals can cause allergic reactions, just like many other drugs can cause it. Monoclonals in some people can, because these are antibodies, these can activate the immune system, causing inflammation. But generally, one of their side effects is allergic reactions. So, Evusheld is a monoclonal. So, yes. But these are pretty safe. The question is, can they be useful? So, we looked at those efficacies or effectiveness of these a few days ago. Alexander says Dr. Bean versus Mr. Bean. Sure. Mr. Bean will win for now. I just need to work a little more, few years, and then I'll win. Par says exam date sheet directly supplies to your lacrimal gland. Yes, that's the only way students study, Parth. If you don't give them exams, they don't study. They just do messing around. Brett says Dr. Brown's blackberry cherry. I see. Brett says, does monkeypox have a nasty protein like spike? So far, it is not known. Doug says, does monkeypox convey immunity to smallpox? That's a very interesting question. We know that the smallpox vaccine can help against monkeypox. I would suspect that monkeypox will provide some cross reactivity, but I have not read any articles around that. That's a very good question. So Brett says, something I've been wondering about. SARS-CoV-2 spikes must be shaped like ACE. So will antibody against spike also bind ACE2? No, they would actually look like ACE2, right? So they would not bind ACE2 because they look like ACE2, or not really the ACE2, just tiny parts of it. However, I had done this discussion a few months ago, and we actually had the author as an for an interview as well, William Dr. William Murphy. And he had done a research, he and his team, that the idiotypical antibodies. So what happens is, let's say the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein arrived in our body. We made antibodies against it. Those antibodies cannot bind with ACE2 because they look like parts of ACE2. So ACE2 would not bind with ACE2. However, our body then produces another set of antibodies that are against this set of antibodies. These are called anti-idiotypical antibodies, and that is part of a homeostatic mechanism. That is, our body knows that I'm making a lot of antibodies and I need to clear them out. So to clear them out, body makes more antibodies to clear these antibodies. Now, these antibodies that are against this anti-spike antibodies, this anti antibodies are actually, they look like spike protein or parts of spike protein, so they can bind with ACE2 and they can cause inflammation, and that is one possible mechanism that causes severe COVID and that causes autoimmune diseases. Very good question. You've been wondering like a scientist. So yes, South Carolina is on 7, 8, and 9. 7, I believe 5 to 6, right? Or 4 to 6. I'll arrive at the airport near 2. So after that, whatever time it takes to be at the harbor, we can even meet at the airport. So 7, then 8th is 5 to 6. Ninth, I'm departing at 5. So 1 to 3. And you're welcome. I was going to create a little Google form and um, announce that. So if somebody wants to come in, they can just go in and inform me so I'm aware of who may be coming. YouTube says Dr. Macmillan did a nice analogy. Very good. Very good. Excellent. This is a good question. Lord Chunk says, is that a cat? Curious, is that the cat's name as well, Lord Chunk? Did Elquin's turtle ever get named? Was it a tortoise? So we have to ask. I thought his Elquin decided on Tali, but that was only because we started asking him how's Tali doing. So Elquin, if you are here, tell us if your turtles or tortoise have been named. So there is a interesting question somebody was asking, can I get COVID from produce? So really the way to look at it is this: SARS-CoV-2 has a membrane around it, which we say envelope. And what that is imagine this is SARS-CoV-2 material and protein and RNA and stuff. When it is getting out of our Golgi apparatus or endoplasmic reticulum, where it is being manufactured with the ribosome, when it comes out, it steals a pinch of our vesicles membrane, and that becomes its envelope. So its envelope is actually stolen human cell vesicle membrane or vesicle cover. So it is very delicate. It's a microscopically thin membrane. Because it is delicate, it needs to survive in water. It needs water to stay hydrated and for its membrane to stay intact. So, any situation where the water is not available or the surface is coarse and absorptive, over there the SARS-CoV-2 will find it difficult to survive. On the other hand, any surfaces which are plain and non-absorbent and polished, and the temperature is such that the water is not evaporating fast, over there the SARS-CoV-2 can live for a longer time. So when you talk about produce, it really depends. Are they all kind of, let's say these are apples wrapped in little packings, then it may have SARS-CoV-2 on this. If it is produce which is just coarse skin of the fruits or vegetables, then that would not allow the virus to survive on it for long. But imagine if somebody has, and now I'm going to gross you out, somebody has snot, and that snot is on a food, and the snot itself is thick enough and has the virus in it, that virus might survive for a longer time because it's not going to evaporate very fast. So it really depends what is the way it is contaminated, and the temperature and the surface qualities. Otherwise it would become invalid very fast, or not viable very fast. So M. Gregory says, is there any protocol you would change that you did early in this pandemic? So dandelion tea is very interesting. And then I would actually request to everyone, see if coconut oil and MCT oil is something that suits you, meaning your health and these agree. If possible, then add them. because when I had COVID and I used the coconut oil in our foods, it changed my brain fog like a day and night difference. So that really MCT oil and the coconut oil is very, very important for anyone who is aging, including me, and anyone who may have brain fog or neurological outcomes. It is also actually very good for, studies show, for slowing down Alzheimer's. Denise says, I love MCT oil. Yep. So GABA, MCT oil, coconut oil, dandelion tea, these may be some more intermittent fasting. So in general, I think that on the FLCCC, Dr. Paul Marek has done a great job of pulling together all of these threads and put them in the protocols. Nipa says, hey Nipa, how are you? Good for gut microbiome. Yes. Kini says, coconut oil and MCT oil are my shopping. Yes, thank you. It's actually great. Kelly says, MCT has had a pretty dramatic impact on me and my husband. We just started. It. This is the right word, dramatic. It changes your brain processing powers like in a dramatic way. You can actually feel that yesterday I did not have coconut oil and today I had coconut. It does such a dramatic change. I do not know that is placebo, but there are many studies that show that it has this effect. So Danilo says, and please don't forget tomorrow morning Zoom walk at 7 a.m. Pacific time. Danilo says, sir, is it possible to have SARS-CoV-2 specific naive B cells, SARS naive B cells in the lymph nodes and organs even before getting infected or vaccinated? What will happen? Yes. Actually, it is such a beautiful question, and the answer is very, very simple. You have naive B cells and T cells for almost anything that our body can attack already present. So then your question will be, as you said, what will happen? What happens is, imagine I am a cell, I'm a B cell. When I was born with this hand, right? Now, when we humans are born, we are all born with the same hand structure. And our hands are able to modify their shape, and we can then pick up various things and hold various things and so on. The B cells and T cells do not have that luxury. They're not born with hands with fingers. So what happens is, I'm going to draw this. And if anybody is going to get bored, please, my apologies. It's a good question. And it gives me an opportunity to draw. So what else to do on a Friday evening than to relax and have tea and draw? So let's say there is a B cell here that was just born. This is another B cell and another B cell and another B cell, right? So there are a bunch of B cells. Or you can think of them as T cells. And let's say these are their nuclei. And to the anger of the medical community who's trying to get me out of their um, groups, I will make eyes on them. Of course, if you are a doctor or medical student, you know that these eyes are actually viewable with ultra microscopes. Okay, so here are some cells. What happens is, when these are born, these cells cannot be given an arm that is so sophisticated that it can change its shape. These are like little tiny things. So they are given. So here is their DNA. When the cell is being built, what happens is we scramble. So let's say this is their part of the DNA that is responsible to help them make immunoglobulin, or that protein that is antibody, we call it. But before, so antibody we know is made up of constant, or let's say heavy chains and light chains, right? And then they have variable regions, or you can say they're like wrench region, just like Paul was showing us that here is a wrench. Now, a wrench is usually has a shape that is fixed shape, correct? That's exactly what this is. It's a wrench. It has a fixed shape. So when it is being born, the cell, at that time, what will be the shape? It will only be one shape, but what will it be? That shape will be created by randomly shuffling the genes. This is called somatic hypermutation. Somatic, um, Parth is here. He should be telling us these things. He is a medical student. This is called somatic hypermutation. So in this, we shuffle around these genes. The result is when they make the binding region, every B cell, most of the time, ends up with a binding region that looks different. So let's say this B cell has a binding region like this. This B cell ends up with a binding region like this. This B cell ends up with a binding region like this. This B cell ends up with a binding region like this. Now, this B cell, each one of them, for their whole life, can only make an arm and a hand antibody that is fixed in that shape, just like a wrench is fixed in its shape when it is built in the factory. When we get infected, these cells were already present. So imagine we got infected with SARS-CoV-2. Our SARS-CoV-2, this virus, was picked up by macrophages. Macrophages picked it up, destroyed it, crushed it, shredded it, and pulled its pieces apart. And then they expressed those pieces on their surface in what we say antigen presenting. These are called antigen presenting cells or professional antigen presenting cells. And this is called MHC2 protein, on which that particular protein is presented. Part of protein, normally 6, 7 to 11, 12 amino acids. So a really tiny part. And to understand that, you can think about it this way, that let's say you have a document. That document is a novel, but you just pick up one word from it and try to present that to someone else and say, do you know what this word is? Now, when this presentation occurs, this macrophage is going to go around, and many other macrophages like this, they're going to go around everywhere in the body, go to the lymph node, go to the other lymph nodes, circulate everywhere, wherever they find a T cell. And imagine T cell have a similar behavior with the antibodies, their T cell receptor, we call them. So these macrophages are going to go to every one of them and say, hey, what do you think about this? And the T cell is in response is going to say, let me try to grab it. So if that T cell's wrench receptor can bind with it, then the T cell will become activated. That means, to answer your question, that T cell had to be present before. Now, if that T cell becomes active, then it's going to go and release things, let's say for B cells. Somewhere, a B cell has to be standing somewhere that can also bind with this, some antigen part of this virus. If a B cell is standing like that and a T cell that has just become activated by the macrophage, that T cell would release interleukin 4 and interleukin 5. And this T cell, only this T cell that is bound with something, will become active. And it would start proliferating and differentiating. Now, to your question, if these T cells were already present, they are present right now in you, in me, in everyone that have the capability of binding with the SARS-CoV-2 proteins. They are present right now, but they're not doing anything because they need co-stimulation to function. They need someone to bind with them, some antigen to bind with them that fits their hand. So once that their wrench is loaded, then you have to further stimulate them. You have to further poke them to say, okay, now work. You know there is something dangerous here. You are loaded with it. and that is the interleukin 4 and 5. Once that interleukin 4 and 5 is given, then what happens is this B cell would start proliferating. It would start making daughters. Why? Because this B cell knows that the other B cells have a different shape. And we need millions and millions and billions of B cells now to fight. So it makes its own copies. It knows that all my daughters would have a hand shape or a wrench shape that is like me. And that is this whole thing works. That is the same case with the T cell. A beautiful thing in immunology. Good question. Nibicon says, I'm missing a couple of nuts. Sorry about that. Did I just go on my own with a rant of how these things work? I should actually at least these little cute things that save us, give them little colors. And all those medical students and doctors and nurses who have had a chance to look at these cells in the microscope, under the microscope, you can attest, I guess, that these cells have eyes and hands and stuff. And so I am correct. Rand says, how did you consume the oil? So it said on it that 1 tablespoon. I didn't take the whole tablespoon, but I just put it in the spoon and just took it. Coconut oil in the food. So we used to use olive oil in the food. So now we've been cooking every once in a while, nowadays even more with um, with the coconut oil. It does have a different taste. John says, what about a spatula? Exactly. These are spatulas or spoons. And people told me last time under my video that these are called, I don't know, there were some other names too. Ladles. So these are called ladles, these things. Ladles or wooden spoons. And these were not spatulas, but I called them spatulas to people's dismay. So you can actually tell that my depth of knowledge with medicine and engineering has resulted in my less knowledge in other areas. Jim says that correct. But again, coconut oil plus MCT oil together are a very powerful combination. Lord Lord Chunk says Lord Chunk acquired his name after neighbors kept asking if he'd had kittens. Nice. Lord Chunks. Lord Chunk, good name. Casey says no multitasking. Keeney says we're listening. Good. I could have used a spatula to take the MCT oil. Ray says if glucose in brain brain often is not enough, could MCT help to avoid start of migraine? I have not heard that MCT is able to help avoid migraines, but MCT has great uh, effect on brain's sharpness, alertness. Kelly says, I put it in coffee, but my husband just squeezes it in his mouth in the morning, keeps him from getting hungry. Very interesting. Roller Girl says, how do I use the link on iPhone Zoom app? So if you click on that link on the iPhone, so first you got to bring that link somehow on the phone. Once it is there and you click on it, if you do have a Zoom app, it would then sign you in, and that's it. Then at 7 o'clock in the morning, I will start the meeting, and then if you click it at that time or after, if the meeting or the Zoom walk is still going on, then you will join in. I had kept on the feature for signing in for two reasons. One, when I publish these links, Zoom always sends me an email saying we noticed that you have published this link on Twitter, and it is a security issue. You might end up having people who you do not know who would disrupt your meetings and do bad things. So we would ask you to have the registration on so that you are aware of who joined. And if you complained about someone and give us the time and name, we can know who were present and we can know who you're talking about. So I turned on these, and people have been sending threats and stuff. So I thought turning on sign up registration is good. Texas says so. Yes. So Alicia has Chirp, a rescued little uh, sparrow, I guess. And so Alicia is here. So Alicia, is Chirp gonna show up tomorrow? John Sarah says Zoom banning. Yes, Zoom banning. Zoom banning is a little more complex. You cannot just block. I think you can remove someone, but then you can report him or her to Zoom, and then Zoom can do something. I don't know. Maybe Gone says, what do you think is the future for monkeypox? I think it's going to spread a little more, but then go away. So Raghев says, any companies making plant-based gum for COVID? Not yet. So that study that I shared, I think they are trying to work with various companies, and the team themselves have patents on it. So I'm sure that they're going to make it. I I just don't know if they would like to make it or not. Meaning, is there any profit there or not? Jim says you can cook with the MCT oil as well. Thank you, Jim. Doug, I think you'll have to. So my my supplements, which I've been nowadays a little lax on them. Maybe I'll let me post the picture of my supplements. And I was trying to figure out the studies with this intermittent supplements or skipping day supplements. I will find that and share. I'm so sorry. I always forget. I don't write it down. So bad of me. Don't throw a paperweight at me at this time. So meanwhile, in America, says thoughts on wider use of Evusheld announced a few days ago in USA. So Evusheld in combination, meaning both parts of Evusheld together, Tixi and the other one, whatever that was, they together work fine. They actually together work better than Paxlovid, as I did in that effectivity discussion. So Evusheld 2 work fine. One part of them, Tixi, doesn't work, and they actually work even better than Paxlovid. So it's a good thing. Oh man, Bambi Secret says, how do you all get on walking with holding a phone holder around? No, I don't. But it is tiring for half an hour to keep the phone like this or then change it to this. That is the only tiring part. And every weekend I say, you know what, I need to go get a for some camera or some holder, and I always forget. Are you gonna walk with us, Bambi, tomorrow? Is it too late or too early? I think it's gonna be somewhere in the afternoon for you. John, yes. So, John, there are 360 Insta 360 cameras that can be hooked on to your hats. You know, the golf hats. It can be hooked on it, but I have to go buy it. I am just super lazy. In so True Seeker says you need GoPro, correct, or Insta. Raghave says, does monkeypox spread in the air like COVID? No, not like COVID, but it can be in the bigger droplets. That is because it is on the mucous membrane. So it can be in the bigger droplets. For example, it can be in spit. It can be in the bigger droplets. It can be in the mucous membranes of the genital areas. It can be transmitted through the rashes. It can be deposited on the linens or other things, fomites, and it can transfer from there. Texas says Zoom walking with me holding a phone would mean curb tripping for me. Maybe that would happen to me too. DDS says Zoom link. Yes. Thank you, DDS. Brett says you need an assistant to hold the camera and follow you around during your walk. That's a good idea, but the assistant, I think I need an assistant to hold it on their cap and then follow me around. And you know that Evusheld has started becoming useful again for some of the variants. Nipa says you're doing hand exercises. Stop it, Nipa. You will have to hold your phone up for half an hour tomorrow with me. But I understand my hands are going to become stronger. Text ad says the assistant would need a monitor hanging on their back too. Yep. Ask Luffy to hold the camera. Yes. Luffy's doctor's appointment is soon due, and I'm dreading it because he totally loses it. He does not like to be in a box. So we have to bring him in that little cat box, and he hates it. And if you put him even in the car without any cat boxes, he does not like cars as well. So we'll have to now take a crying Luffy to doctor. John Snyder says, I'm going to patent that Burger King crown and duct tape. Yes. And the first unit sell to Mubin. You have my order right now. Take my money. Raghef says that I was a bit worried that it would affect the general public like SARS too. We are still the sitting ducks for it, but I don't think it is going to be. The only scary part of this one is it also has an incubation time where we do not know that we've gotten it. But the person who has it after the incubation time, they have sores or rashes. Michael says, a question that continues to puzzle me. mRNA, etc., great technology, but given waning, would inactivated or attenuated vaccines be better? Whole virus without side effects and maybe longer lasting. So China has used inactivated. India also has an inactivated virus vaccine. They work fine as well. The only thing is we do not have data as we have for these vaccines. So in theory, these should work fine inactivated because they would actually create a bigger ensemble of the immunoglobulins. So you're thinking correctly and you're thinking like a scientist. KoolBeens have become scientists. Butterfly says, any news on Novavax? So I believe that Novavax has been approved. They just had a very tiny number of doses that they are delivering. So Doug has a question. I thought it was 15 days. Let me confirm it before I. Yes, so I was correct. Let me share. So if you see here, this is after infection, there is an incubation period of roughly 1 to 2 weeks. The development of initial symptoms, fever, malaise, headache, weakness, etc., marks the beginning of the prodromal phase, meaning symptoms. And then a feature that distinguishes infection with monkeypox and that of smallpox is the development of swollen lymph nodes. Swelling of the lymph nodes may be generalized, involving many different locations on the body or localized to several areas, neck and armpit. Shortly after the prodrome, that is when the symptoms start, a rash appears. Lesions typically begin to develop simultaneously and evolve together on any given part of the body. The evolution of lesions progresses through four stages: macular, papular, vesicular, and pustules, before scabbing over and resolving. So, incubation time is 1 to 2 weeks. So, 10 7 to 15 days. That is a time where if somebody has the infection, they would not know, and that is where the spread can occur. So, with this, how about we break for today? Thank you very much for spending some of your Friday evening with me. I hope you were enjoying and tucked into your beds, and this was a bedtime story. And I would see some of you tomorrow at almost at 11 and a half hours from now. Thank you very much. Please like, subscribe, and share. And if you would like to support this work, there are links in the description which you can use. Thank you, and I'll see some of you tomorrow. Bye bye.